Yo, welcome to another episode of VickCook, and this is the episode everybody was asking me about. This is the highly requested one from my peers. They wanted to know my ribs secret, so I'm gonna let you guys know the ribs secret. So this is how I do my ribs. First thing I do is just buy a cheap slab of ribs. Don't really matter what you buy. I do like the St. Louis cut because it's already cleaned up and everything. But the spare ribs, for some reason, is always cheaper. So you get this big bulky thing. Now you could just take this out of the pack, season it on up, and throw it on the grill, and you're good to go. Excuse this mess over here. This is where I previously had some work. Let me go ahead and slide the camera over. So this is the other slab I did earlier. I'm just gonna go ahead and get this out the pack. So this slab of ribs is always cheaper for the spare ribs. You get a lot more for your money though. But it's sometimes, you got to cut it yourself if you want those finer cuts, which I'll be showing you guys how I do it. So I always rinse it off. Oh, don't do that. Try not to drop it if you can, but it's all right. All right. So we got our nice, beautiful, and you see it's a little bit of nice fat on there. Don't really got to do much trimming to it. I do got to cut this membrane off though. My other slab of ribs, I got lucky and it didn't have this membrane. This one does, so I'm gonna have to cut that off. So usually the first thing I do is I'll just try to pinch the end of it and I'll just pull this little membrane up. I'm not really sure what it does. I assume it cooks it, makes it more tender. But as far as I've grown up, we've always peeled the membrane, so that's what I do. One day I do want to try it with the membrane on, but I'm afraid how it's going to turn out. Another trick you can do is you can get a piece of, paper towel or something, and if you can grab on like a corner with the paper towel, it'll help you like peel it fast because you got grip. But I'm kind of used to doing it this way, so it's not that really hard for me. And there's another membrane up in here, but I'm not going to trim that. So now with the spare ribs, what I do like is that you get your regular cut of ribs, your St. Louis cut right up in here. Then up here you got your rib tips. You don't get that many, but you get a decent amount of rib tips. And then you get a little bit of whatever this is over here and whatever this is here. So what I like to do is I like to get my other knife, and then first thing I do is I'll trim this part off. Because I like the ribs to just kind of be kind of even, and this actually makes it even. So when this is over there flapping, it'll actually kind of keep this from. It'll take longer for this to be cooked. So to prevent that, I just trim it off. Alright. And I don't know what part this is. I really don't know what part this is, but I cook it anyway, so I'll put that over here. Actually, I'll set it right there so we can see all the pieces together. And then there's a membrane on here, and I think once you peel that off, it's easier to kind of just peel that off if you want to. I could leave it on just to see what it does, but there we go. Alright, so that's good enough right there. I really don't care about this part of the rib. Alright, so that's that. So then the next thing I'll do is I'll turn this kind of over, and I'll kind of find where the big part of the bones is, and right up in here is where I'm going to get into my spare rib. So if you look at this, like where the bone kind of ends, that's where your extraness is. So I'm going to figure out, let me see, how do I cut this earlier? It's always easy. All right, so then I kind of just go right over the top into where and it should be easy. It shouldn't be too hard. You just gotta add a little bit of pressure, and you're just separating the rib tips from the actual ribs. And then I'm just kind of going along the top of the ribs. It's kind of curving a little bit. That's okay. There we go. And I'm just pretty much just trimming this so that way I don't have to deal. Because when you have it on here, now you could do it with this on here. It'll take a longer time to cook though. And also I like the neater cuts of meat. And I do like to separate my rib tips from my ribs because I do different flavors with them. Alright, so this is getting to be a pain. Alright, so then I'll just cut that. Alright, there we go. So then I got the tips. And then this is some other extra meat over there. And then a lot of times what else I'll do is I'll just maybe go to like the last bone or so and just trim that off. Just to make it a little even. Alright. So I got my nice beautiful cut right here. Could have been neater, but I like how that looks. And I got my tips here. This other thingy right here and another thingy right here. But all this getting cooked though. I don't throw nothing out. So I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands. Actually, I'll bring everything over. So I'm gonna separate all my meats and I'm gonna wash my hands and then I'm gonna show you guys how I season everything. So just bear with me. Let me figure out. All right, we'll use that. Let me pause it. All right, now, so we're back. I got my two separate cuts. I got my ribs right here, and I got my rib tips here, and the other pieces of meat that I don't know what I'm doing with that yet, but we will figure something out. So for the rib tips, I'll start with the rib tips. I like to make these a little sweet because at the end I usually douse them in barbecue sauce and get them nice and real tender. So for the rib tips, I'll go with like a little applewood rub. Actually, you know what? First, now some people rub mustard on their ribs. I don't. I like to use a little bit of wine. For my sweet ribs, I'll just splash a little wine on there. And that just kind of helps my seasoning stick. So some people use mustard. I'll use a wine for the sweet version. And I really don't have a problem with my stuff sticking. Not too much anyways. As long as I don't add too much wine where it's just too liquidy. But I just want the ribs to be nice and moist so that way everything can stick. So I added my applewood seasoning. Then I'm going to add some black pepper. You can't go wrong with black pepper. All right. And then I'm going to, actually I probably should have added this first, but I'm going to add brown sugar. And this is going to give the ribs that nice little coat. And once the sugar starts heating up, it's going to crust a little bit. It's going to give it a nice dark flavor, but that's what I like to add to them. And I just kind of just pat that in there any kind of way I can. And I'm really not too worried about seasoning the rib tips because one, they have a lot of fat on it. So as it's cooking, the fat's going to go everywhere. And so you're going to get a lot of flavor in it. And also, I am going to sauce these up pretty heavy lately, so really don't need to worry too much about the seasonings. But we do it anyway, because we do want that in depth of a flavor. A little more brown sugar. And then, because they're going to be a little sweet, I like to counteract that with a little bit of spice. Now, the ribs itself is salty, so you won't ever see me add salt to my ribs, at least not directly. If I have a seasoning that has salt in it, I'll probably use that. But I'll try to stay away from that. I try to use rubs, natural stuff if I can. Like instead of a lemon pepper seasoning, I'll try to just use straight lemon and pepper. Instead of like a garlic salt, I'll just ground up my own garlic. And you'll see that a lot in my other videos. So this, I just got some simple slap your mama Cajun seasoning. And that's just for a little spice. Do not slap your mom. We love our moms. We respect our elders here. Don't slap your moms. None good ever came from somebody slapping their mom. So yeah, so now as you see, it's nice. The season's sticking on there. Don't need any mayo. Don't need any mustard or whatever. So I'm just going to set those over here. Actually, I should go ahead and put these on the hook. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll put that. You know what? I'll save it for the end. So that way both my hands don't get all mucky. All right, so now for the St. Louis style ribs, that they're already nice cut and trimmed. I'm just kind of cleaning my hand off. So what I'll do for these is I ran out of applewood, so I'm just gonna go with my Jack Daniel's pork rub. I got some lemon pepper seasoning here. I'm gonna add a little bit of that too, and I also got just regular lemon and pepper. So yeah, I'll just add a little bit of all of that to it. So now, for this, I'll just splash it with whiskey. Just splash it with a little whiskey, and that keeps the and that'll make sure my seasonings stick on here. I did wine earlier because the wine is going to add that citrusiness, that little fruitiness to it that I think will go good. And for here, I'm just adding whiskey just cause, and I also got the Jack Daniels, so that'll match. We'll think. So then I'm just gonna do a nice little heavy coat of the Jack Daniels rub. Actually, you know what? I could do these at the same time. Actually, there we go. We'll do that. So let me get some more whiskey on in here. There we go, just right off the top. And then we'll hit it with our rub. And now for my seasonings, I try to keep stuff as simple as possible. I try to do like a rub and then maybe another spice or two. I don't want to add like 5 different stuff to it, because then the ribs will come out good, but you really can't really taste what you add. It's just a mix of everything, and it's good, don't get me wrong. If you want to add whatever you want to add to your ribs, you can, but I mostly like to just keep stuff simple. So I'm just splashing a little whiskey on there, rubbing it up and down, and they're nice and moist, so that way when I add my rub, it's sticking immediately. And then the rub also gives it a nice beautiful color. All right, so now I got that. Then I'm gonna add some black pepper. And this is the underside of the ribs. You season both sides because that's what matters. The top part is, don't do that. Now if that happens, it's easy to just spread that around a little bit. Add a little bit of whiskey to it. Might help bring some of that around. There we go. All right, so that's enough. So that's gonna be a lot of pepper on there. Now I also got my lemon pepper seasoning, which I'll add some of that to this side here. All right, and then I'm just kind of patting it in. You don't want to rub it in, even though it says rub. You don't rub. Just kind of, I just pat it in, and it pretty much will stick. Like, it's not sticking to my hand as much. It's sticking to the meat, so that's what you want. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over. Alrighty, and then I'm gonna add my lemon pepper. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more black pepper. Not too much, but just a little bit, because pepper's good. And then sometimes I'll give it another coat of my rub too, just like another light coat on there on top. And then since I have it here, I'm just gonna go ahead and roll my lemon. And then we will just roll the lemon, and then we'll just squeeze lemon juice on there. There we go. Perfect. So now that we got this, I'm gonna go ahead and hook them up. Actually, I got my hooks here, so we'll do that. Now for the hooks, I like to do the fat part. I think it's the fattest part down. I think that's the rule. I don't know. But yeah, so I just kind of aim it in. I try to go in between the second bone, and that's plenty enough to support it. It's not going to get too weak where it falls apart, and but this is a good enough. It's good enough to hold it together. So then I just set that rib right in there like that. Then I'll get my second hook. I like to go right up under the second rib, just so it's enough thing to support. And then I put my heavy part towards the bottom, because it'll be closer to the heat, so that way it should cook all evenly. Another theory is if you put the smaller side towards the bottom, the fat from the top will drip down and kind of baste the meat. That's another theory. To me, I've had it all types of ways. It really doesn't matter. And then so for my rib tips, I'm going to, doesn't really matter, I'm just going to hook it anywhere I can. Try to get it in there. Where's the, why can't I find it? Okay. So I want to get it in between some bones, but, all right, there we go. So that's good. So I got it right there. That's good enough there. And then also the other 2 pieces of meat that I found here, I'm just going to go ahead and hook that on as well. Just cause, and I also had another long piece. There we go. So there we go. I'll just hook all that on there as is. This is gonna cook faster anyway, so I'll probably be pulling these off sooner. Or we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If I cook everything nice, low and slow, then they should all cook very slowly. And it'll get the chance to get the rib tips really tender. So then I'm just gonna hook that through here. There we go. Beautiful. And then we got our little piece of pork right there. Just hook that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add this there. Just hook that on there too. All right, so we got our meat. So now I'm gonna go outside, prep the grill a little bit, wash my hands. I'm gonna clear this up later. And then I'll see you guys outside on the grill. All right, so I got my grill at a steady temp of 250-ish, which is great because I want to smoke these ribs at 225-ish, or definitely under 250, between 220 and 240. If I can keep it in that range for several hours, then I'm happy with that. So next thing to do is just to load up the ribs. I got my 2 hooks going on, so that's what I'm going to use for today. And pretty much I'm just gonna add the ribs on in there. Doesn't matter where you add them. It's just as long as I just add them in there somewhere. There we go. Yeah, sometimes I like to move them up a little bit. Don't really hurt nothing else. Then I'm gonna add my tips. Alrighty, so that's pretty much it right there. So that's pretty much it. Now all I gotta do is close them. I may add my 3rd hook in here too, just in case I want to move stuff around. But as of now, I'm happy with what this looks like. So now just to close it. And since I added the cold meat in there and I opened it up, the temperature dropped. Right now it's at 200. So it's gonna rise up, but I'm gonna close these off just a little bit and I'm gonna let the grill do its thing. I'm gonna keep checking it periodically. I'm not gonna come out here and open it up. As you see, it's snowing. I don't need to be out here. I don't want to be out here in the snow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let that sit for a while. I'm gonna peek at it through the window, and as long as it's between 225 and 250-ish, I'm happy. And then I'm gonna come out here in another, I'm gonna give it 2 hours. I'm gonna give it 2 hours untouched, not looking at it, not doing nothing to it. And then I'm gonna come out, maybe I'll spritz it down. I might even wait till the 3rd hour mark before I check it. But I'm anticipating it's gonna take a good 4 hours, at least 4 to 5 hours at this low of a temperature. So right now it's right at 225. It rose up a little bit, so I'm gonna close this off because I wanted to kind of just maintain this temperature. And this grill does great for holding the temp. So I'm gonna, yeah, if I can hold it at 225, that's great. And I will be out here in like 2 to 3 hours. And it's crucial that you don't really open it because the first hour is where you get that nice, beautiful smoke ring color. That's the first hour is crucial. So if you're opening, checking it, you're not doing yourself. You'll still cook the ribs, but it'll hard for that smoke flavor to settle. So as long as you got a nice low temperature, constant steady smoke flow, and that's just the presentation, so the ribs look pretty. So you guys hang tight. I will be back in some hours, and we'll see what the update look like.